Hello everyone, Simon here. We're on an architecture tour of Skyrim, and in the last video we went and had a look at Solitude, but now let's go to Windhelm. So we're gonna take the carriage to Windhelm.
Climb and back and we'll be off.
Windhelm, if you don't know, is the other city in the Civil War. So there's a civil war between a rebellion led by, what's his name? Ulfric Stormcloak against the Empire. So the Imperials are here at Solitude. And Windhelm is the home city of Ulfric Stormcloak. So here it is. And again, when you fast travel or when you take the carriage, the game drops you in a place where it doesn't really show off the city. The city's back there in case you... Well, you can't see it because there's a giant gateway in the way. So let me just walk back. So there's oh, there's a dragon, cool. So there's a number of paths. There's a path that comes this way towards the city, and then there's a... keep clicking the wrong button. And then there's a path that comes this way towards the city, and I guess there's a third path that comes along the river this way to the city. So you approach the city from these three directions. There's nothing really out this way, although you can approach the city from this way if you're somehow exploring out here. And I guess Winterhold, actually no, Winterhold, if you follow the main road actually goes around through this valley here, and then back down here. So you always approach the city from this direction. Remember in a Solitude, the road really comes from Dragon Bridge, and that view wasn't all that amazing. But here, you'll notice that the view is actually better. Hold on, Dragon. Wait a minute, we'll get back to this pretty soon. Alright, done. So you see the bridge over there, and then you see... actually no, there's no... Okay, well there's a bridge over there, and then there's a path through the rocks there. So I'm just gonna walk further along here, and we'll see what the city looks like as we approach it along the roads, right? So this is one of the major roads, although again, like, if you look at the roads, again, in contrast to the here's the path. In contrast to the first part of the game where the roads were always kind of hemmed in on both sides by very clear boundaries. I mean here, sure, there's a mountain there and there's a river there, but you know, it's like a white road next to white snow. It's basically not as clear, and the river also is not as fast, and so you're kind of tempted to just kind of cross the river. So the paths outside of the first area of the game are, as I've been saying, less clear and less likely to force you to stick to them. So that's what Windhelm looks like from here. There's trees in the way though. I mean, there's a giant bridge, that looks kind of good. Not sure about that part. I mean, it's just a big bridge, isn't it? What is... hold on. Let me just walk further back. Let me run a little bit. So... oh, that's better. Okay, that's better. So that's the city. This is not really a screenshot view of the city, although this is not bad. So here we get a side view of the city. There's the palace back there, rising up above the city walls. The city walls are pretty imposing and intimidating. And then there's obviously a massive bridge crossing the river there. Well, that was good. That looks pretty good from here. Let me just go back a little bit more. So this road comes this way, and then there's like a... I thought there was a crossing over here. I guess the crossing was... oh, the crossing's up there, I think. Actually, isn't there a bridge here somewhere? Or is the bridge up there? Did I miss the bridge? Oh, there's the bridge, wow. Okay, completely missed the bridge. So if you're walking down here, that's kind of good. I mean, it's not quite as great as the view of Whiterun from the crossroads, but it's pretty good. I mean, it looks pretty impressive, and you can see that the city kind of rises upwards from the bridge up to the palace. That looks kind of good. And if we're over here, this is actually where the road is. And we look at it this way, well, you can't really see much. You see a bridge in the distance, you don't really get a good view of it. So the city is hidden behind that outcropping there. So you don't really see it, you kind of see it, and then you cross the bridge. And then at the end of the bridge you turn around and there it is. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So I mean the thing about this is that there's a mountain here, there's a mountain here. So there's really only one way to approach the city from this area, which is through this canyon here. Like you wouldn't climb the mountain like that or climb the mountain here. So like there's a tall, a really tall mountain there, a pretty steep mountain here as well. So the fact that they kind of put these mountains here, it funnels you down this path, and so then they can really predict what the player will see because there's only really one way the player can walk, which is between the mountains. And so then they can spend time working on this view to make sure that this looks good, and they can be sure that the player will see it if they come this way. Whereas with Solitude, if you remember, there was like a giant swamp. And the giant swamp is like a big flat open area that you can walk in any direction. So, you can follow the road, but you can also come from this way, you can come from this way, you can come from this way, you can come from this way. So like this entire semicircle is completely open. So there's really no way at Solitude to funnel the player into a position where they have to see the city from a particular angle. So it actually makes Solitude a lot more difficult to make look impressive, because unless you make it look impressive from every angle or every possible angle, like you can't really force the player to move a certain way. So there's another path through here. I don't think there's too much to see back here. Look, there's a rock here, right? Actually, let me just go back a little bit. Who are these guys? What is that? Oh, okay, Vigilant of Sten. Oh, that's cool. Hey, look at that. So this is the other path. Why are they dead? That's weird. So here's the other path. Let me just run back here. Oh, that's good. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the way the trees frame the city like that. Amazing. Much better than Solitude. Do you see what I mean? Like when you walk up the road, oh look at that, and it's hidden. So back here, it's hidden. You don't see the city. And then as you walk towards the city, look at this, amazing. And then the trees open up, and there's the city. Amazing, amazing. So like the way this road lines up frames the view for you, frames the city in the distance for you. Great. And then as you come around, this is a great view of that castle, right? It's just kind of layers of buildings stepping back. And in fact, there's even this shrine here. There's a shrine to Talos at the top of this hill, which also conveniently serves as a great spot to take screenshots and selfies of this beautiful city. Actually, can I take a selfie? So we can like try not to fall off the cliff, like stand on the edge of the cliff, turn. Okay, let's come on, please, guys. And like, turn around and maybe like take a selfie, and try not to fall off the cliff as you take your selfie. Look at this. This is amazing. So they even put this here. They even put this, and like Talos, there he is. Talos is checking out while he's killing this serpent, but he's also checking out this great view of the city alongside you. Hey, what's up, Talos? Nice, good. And I'm saying nice and good because it is very clear that the people who designed this game understand how they want you to view the city. Like they understand that this is a good view, and so they put this here to give you this view, right? I mean, this is not a coincidence. This mountain is not a coincidence. That path is not a coincidence. Like they deliberately lined it up so that you see the city through the trees. Oh, look at the fox. What's up, bro? You see the city through the trees, and hey, it's so great. Look at that. Look at that framing. rocks on one side, rocks on the other, framing this view. Amazing! So well designed. I mean, it's as well designed as the approach to Whiterun, and a huge contrast. A huge contrast to the approach to Solitude. The Solitude approach is just bad. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Like the way you approach Solitude is just boring. But the way you approach Windhelm is great. I don't know what to say about that because it's kind of inconsistent, right? Like when you approach Whiterun, it looks awesome. When you approach Solitude, it looks boring, and then when you approach Windhelm, it looks awesome. So like some of these are awesome, and then some of these are bad. I don't know what to say. It's just, I mean, it's just inconsistent. All right, so this is the other path that you approach the city from, and here, look at this. So this path comes this way, and at this point, this path actually points straight at the city. So you can see the icons at the top of the screen. Actually, there's a city back there. So I mean, if you just kind of come down this path, again you see the city in the distance. We have to run all the way back here. Actually, the path curves around this way. Although I say that, but this is really a flat open area, so the path doesn't really matter that much because you're not that likely to just stick on the path. Oh man, look at this. I'm sorry I have to run all the way back here, but like you see how this path, again, it curves around a little bit for this. So there's one of the villages. We're not going to go to the village. So the main road goes that way. City's over there, you can't see it. The main road, for no good reason, for no logical reason, turns this way. Like why would you not have the path just go straight through, right? So for no practical reason, the path turns around sideways and then turns back around again to make sure that you can see the city in the distance. As you turn around, there it is. Like what? I mean, why else? Why else if not to show you that? Because there's no reason why the path doesn't just go straight down there, right? So the path just makes this dogleg bend for no reason except to show you a beautiful view, and there's the city in front of you. And then as the path goes forward, again, like why would the path not just go straight across here? I mean, it's just stone, right? You think, well, why don't you just go straight to the city? Again, as we walk up here, so the city is hidden by the rocks and the trees. As we continue, like this is completely redundant. Why does the path go this way, of all places? But the path comes through here. We come through these rocks, and again, the rocks means that you really don't have any other options. Like once you're here, you have to go through this canyon to get to the city, right? You can't just go anywhere else. And then, hey, there it is again. There's the city. Amazing. So again, the path kind of curves left, and then it curves right, and then every time it's to make you see the city from a different angle, just to show off. I mean, they're making me walk a longer distance and around in circles, just so they can make me see this beautiful city of theirs. Great, awesome. So well presented. This and that's all it is. And if you can compare the approaches to the city versus the approach to Solitude, and it's very obvious that they've done a better job here presenting the city than in the other ones. So on the outskirts of Windhelm, there's also a couple of farms. So there's a farm here, there's a farm there, and there's really nothing on that side of the map. Although the road does go this way. If you want to see the farms, so you can see that the city is actually less attractive from this angle. There's a port down there, but even from this road, you can't really see it all that well. So from the direction where there's nothing out there, you probably wouldn't come this way very often. Like this view is less well framed and less balanced. Like just in terms of the composition of an image, like this composition is less good. I don't know if I guess you have to kind of learn art history to understand how to compose images. Anyway, it's just maybe you could just see it. Maybe you don't have to understand the math or the geometry. Maybe you can just kind of feel it in your gut that this particular view of the city is just less ideal than the other side. Although this is okay, I mean, this is okay, but it seems like this sticks out a little too much, and then like we don't see enough of that. Like this seems kind of small in behind this massive wall, and so then the castle seems less impressive than the frontier, and the docks are too small again as usual. And then these walls are just kind of big and blank, and they're not that. I mean, they're imposing, but they're not attractive, really. And the bridge, you only see one of the arches, whereas from the other side, that you see both arches. Yeah, I mean, it's just the composition is just less interesting from this side and less ideal from this side. But that's okay. That's perfectly okay because there's actually nothing on this side of the game. This is like the edge of the game. Like you can't really go any further beyond this. And there's not much reason for you to be out here anyway. So this is this view of the city, and it's still, I mean, it's okay. Not as good as the other side, but not bad. Definitely not bad. And there's really no other views. I mean, you can come from behind there, and that's a really bad view because it's like literally the back of the city, and there's nothing impressive there at all. And then on the other side, you can see the mountain there, so you can't really come towards the city from the other side. So the entire city kind of sits into the mountain, so it really limits the approaches. So you can only approach from that area. And by limiting the approaches to the city, again, it allows the designers to really focus on the things that's important. Like if you can approach the city from 180 degrees as you can in Solitude, then you have to make all those approaches look good. Whereas if you can only approach from 3 different directions, as in this city, well then you only have to focus on 3 views of the city to make those look good. So you're limiting the way people can move towards the city, and by doing that you're limiting how much work you need to do to make the city look good in all the different options, right? Okay, so that's enough about the city from a distance. Let me just get onto the bridge and then we'll read about the city. There isn't actually a book in the game that talks about the entire city. There's a bit about politics, but I don't want to get into too much into politics. I guess I'll talk about it when we go into the city. There is one book that talks a little bit about one part of the city, Windhelm, Scourge of the Grey Quarter. The Grey Quarter is only like 1/3 of the city. But let's read this one, and you might get an idea if you're not familiar with the game, of course. If you are familiar, then you already know this stuff. So, Scourge of the Grey Quarter, the tragedies befalling Morrowind do bring forth pity from even the stoutest Nordic heart. The Dark Elves deserve our condolences, but thus far they do not show themselves deserving of the simplest acts of charity. There are very different approaches to how to deal with the imminent problem of Morrowind, and I offer 2 options as seen in practice in Skyrim. One should serve as an exemplar, the other a cautionary tale. So, the history of this game, or the lore of this game, is that Morrowind, which is the province to the east of us, there's a giant volcano there that erupted, and it destroyed a large part of that province, and that's the province of the Dark Elves. And as a consequence of that volcanic eruption, a lot of people fled to Skyrim. A lot of the Dark Elves fled to Skyrim, and so there's like an influx of refugees, and they're black people. And so there's racism. Basically, that's the story. Pretty much just like in real life, when colored people move as refugees into areas dominated by white people, there's racism involved. That's just like real life, actually. That's amazing. Anyway, we're not going to talk about... Let's see. We're not going to talk about Riften. So in Windhelm, for an alternate approach, we only have to look at the once proud city of Windhelm to see what can happen when our arms are cast too wide open in welcome. To think that the city of Ysgramor, whose very name was made in driving out the elves from our sacred home, would open itself as a welcome destination for any refugee from the smoking sulfur is a disgrace to the very idea of being a Nord. So this guy is racist, clearly. And what has become of this? Predictably, the lazy, discontented rabble has descended into squalor in an area now delicately referred to as the Grey Quarter of the city. They were not expected to contribute and so have not. That they attempt to make over a proud Nord city into a little pocket of Morrowind is insulting enough, but the amount of unrest they have provoked within the proper city walls should give any other Jarl reason to fear. The Nords I talk to in the city speak of constant strife and crime coming from the Grey Quarter, with no respite in sight. The city guard barely patrol there, leaving the Dark Elves to mete out whatever passes for justice in their native customs. The respectable families of the city, the Crucies and Shattershields, speak with an almost parental affection of the Argonians in their employ, but the Dark Elves have made no effort to ingratiate or assimilate themselves into the proper city dwellers. There is cause for optimism though, as Jarl Ulfric is not nearly so tolerant of these substandard beings as his fathers were. Oozing racism. Indeed, the soft hand of Hoag can be seen in the city's Argonian population as well. The fishmen, at least, have learned how to best contribute to their new home. They have proven themselves as models, toiling at the docks with utmost efficiency and bright smiles. It would do the Dark Elves well to pay heed to their scaly cousins. I would expect in due course that they will find themselves either contributing more directly or once again wandering the land in search of roof and warmth. And so he's racist. So that is a not entirely clear, but a slight introduction to what's going on in the city is that there's a Dark Elf quarter, and then there's the Nord quarter, and there's racism. So if we just briefly look at the stonework, we can see that kind of like Whiterun, the stonework is not well maintained. So this is there's bits and pieces, there's loose bits and pieces falling off, and if we go in there, there's like weeds on the city walls. So it's kind of like Whiterun. It's not well maintained, and in fact, it's so not well maintained that at least in Whiterun, there's some attempt to reinforce the stone structures with some wooden towers and walls and things. But here, there's not even that. The stone, I mean, it was very impressive. Like the stone walls here are far, far more impressive than the walls of Whiterun. At least, you can imagine it was more impressive. And indeed, they're even more impressive than the ones in Solitude, but the walls here are not well maintained. So this Windhelm. The city was the city of Ysgramor, so Ysgramor was one of the earliest Nords in Skyrim, and so this is a very old city. So the architecture here is supposedly Old Nord. So the timber structures in Whiterun are Nord, but I guess they're contemporary, so they're relatively new. And you can the Dragon Reach is quite well maintained, and so it looks kind of new. Solitude is Imperial influenced, whereas Windhelm is Old Nord. So that's the history of the architecture according to the game's story. And later on, we'll see other Old Nord architectures elsewhere in the game, and you can kind of see the similarities in the massive stonework, and the way these are arranged. Like even the way the stone is arranged, so you can see there's a big stone there and then smaller bits. There's no regularity to the way the stone is set together. It's just like all different kind of sizes and shapes of stones piling up. So just kind of keep in mind this particular style of stonework, right? And you'll see it in other places as well. And as we move forward, and the black color of it.
Don't suppose you'd enchant my sword.
The black color of it, again, you see in the other stones. I think it's supposed to mean something in terms of the materials. I don't quite know what. Is it granite? It might be granite. And you see these. Are these eagles? So these kind of carvings. These are very kind of ancient looking carvings. It's an old city. And also dark and imposing as well. Look at the size of these walls. It's supposed to be intimidating, I suppose. Oppressive and intimidating. Alright, let's go into the city. I guess what I'm trying to point out is that, you know, like Solitude, it's a little bit neglected, but it's new. So there's stone walls, but they're new, so it's new money. Whereas Windhelm, it's old power that is decaying. So it's old power. So these stone walls were built a long time ago, but they're kind of slowly crumbling, and there's like weeds on the walls like that, right? So like the corner of that wall there is broken off. So it's old power, but it's crumbling.
A few septims for my supper is all I ask.
I've got all sorts of interesting things for
Alright,
you to
alright.
buy, and I assure you they're of a finest
So
quality.
the middle of the city, there's an inn here. This thing here is the Candle Hearth Hall.
Come and see for yourself.
I'm not sure if it was always meant to be an inn. It might have been like a mead hall at some time in the past, but so the architecture is very unique. Like, you know, if we remember Solitude, it looks like Europe, like it looks like continental Europe.
I ask only for
But this is much older. It looks Slavic? Is it Slavic? I'm not sure. Maybe I should hold on. Alright, impromptu Wikipedia time. Or like Google time. What if I go Slavic architecture? Kind of. There's no onion domes though. A little bit. Maybe not Slavic. Well, so there's stuff like this, right? Anyway. European. Northern European. Kind of. So in the middle of the city is the Candle Hearth Hall, which is the inn. It's kind of interesting. Like, it looks like a very important building, and it's got a lot of decoration on it, like this kind of old eagle carving. I think they're eagles, could be dragons. I don't know if they're dragons or eagles, but you can see like there's kind of decorations on the rooftops. And this looks like it's a very old building that's been repurposed into an inn. Not sure what it would have been besides an inn though. So then, okay, let's go to the right first. So on this side is the Grey Quarter. And again you can see like stone buildings, but again old stone buildings, not the new stone buildings of Solitude. And even the wood is dark, which is kind of crazy, like everything is dark. So there's a few fancier buildings here, but everything is old.
I'm a sailor on the North Wind.
Good for you.
We're laying...
And then down here is the Grey Quarter, and you can even see like the streets are not well maintained. Look at this. But the streets are not paved. It looks like we're walking in dirt or gravel. The docks are out there. We'll go to the docks later on. And then down here, look at the rooftop. You can kind of start to see it. So everything is run down. Everything is kind of broken. Like all the timber pieces, like that, it's not cut properly. So everything's broken and haphazard. All the hangings are tattered, and the walls are wonky and uneven, and the ground is again unpaved. Tattered. So this is like the poor area of the city, and this is where all the dark elves are. So he's a dark elf here, a black dude. And yeah, everything is run down and old, and not well maintained. I mean, you know, racism. According to the story,
I once killed 6 men single-handed while rescuing my brothers in arms from ambush by an Imperial patrol.
I think this guy is here to harass the Dark Elves. So, you know, some people blame the Dark Elves for what's going on here, but then it's also the case that the Yao has completely neglected this part of the city and just kind of ignores what's going on here. So they're neglected and also blamed for what's going on. And you might notice that it's a giant hole in the ground. Like the whole district, like you walk down into a pit, like you're walking down into a hole in the ground is basically what's going on here.
I'm a sailor on the North Wind. We're laying over in Windhelm for a while.
And narrow streets, dark narrow streets, you can't see much of the sky. So this is as as poverty as possible, as run down and as unappealing as possible is the Grey Quarter. So if we go to the other side of the city, first of all, this is the temple. This is Shrine of Telos or Temple of Telos. The temple, it's the same old architecture, I suppose. It's similar to that. The semicircular windows, the carvings. Although it's slightly fancier than the hall, it seems like. So that's the Temple of Telos. It's also very vertical too. So again, in the verticality, I said in the last video, it's, vertical buildings are difficult, tall buildings are difficult, and so the verticality indicates a certain power and wealth and competency with engineering, like an engineering ability. But again, like, everything's falling apart, and so like whatever competency these people had with engineering appears to be in the distant past, or at least they can't afford to upkeep the walls anymore somehow. Yeah, so everything's like very vertical and very imposing, I suppose is the word that we can use. So this is the market district. We have blacksmith here, blacksmith quarters, and we have a few shops. Maybe I should wait until daytime. Oh, I keep doing this. Or at least wait until dawn and get more light. Okay. We're near dawn. Let me just wait one more hour. There we go. So this is the market. Although, even though we're out of the Grey Quarter, the ground is still unpaved and disgusting. Like, this is not good civic, and it's even kind of, what is this stuff? Is it oil? Is it water? This is not good civic upkeep, as you might interpret from seeing this crap on the ground. But there you go. This is the market, and then there's an apothecary here selling potions and things. So blacksmith, general stores, and potions. And then back here, so that's the Temple of Telos again. There's a graveyard in the middle of the city, which is a little bit strange. In fact, it's a lot strange. It's also kind of crowded too, like all the gravestones are haphazardly arranged. Oh crap, there's a dead person there. I think she's supposed to be lying on one of these tablets. She's part of a quest, by the way. This is the Hall of the Dead. Okay, well I suppose the graveyard is next to the Hall of the Dead, but the fact that it's... Like, the graveyard is also a road is kind of weird. Like, there's a staircase there, there's like a path there, and then there's a staircase here. So this is like a road, but it's also the graveyard. It's not really good planning in terms of the city's layout. Alright, and then back here is the wealthy quarter. The rich people live here. Although, I mean, it's just as run down as the it's just as dark and old. Although the streets are better paved. Look at this, actual paving on the ground. Look at this, the streets are paved. Amazing. So it's slightly better maintained, although you can see a lot of weeds. And this is not much better. Let me just look at the buildings. I mean, the buildings are fancier and bigger, but also not all that well maintained, are they? I mean, the roofs look like they need replacing. I mean, those roofs look like they need some replacing. And the staircases are wonky, look at that, the staircases aren't even straight. Although there is paving on the ground, so it's slightly better. And the buildings, as we said, dark, imposing, old, and... I mean, it just looks like it needs a new coat of paint, you know what I mean? It looks like it needs some maintenance, pretty much. But I mean, it's really well designed though. And I really wanna. Oh, look at the statue's broken. I just want to point out how well Bethesda did making this look bad. I mean, there's the kind of bad that's, you know, a mistake or a lack of investment, but this is the sort of bad that somebody spent a lot of time doing. And by bad I don't mean that Bethesda did a bad job. By bad I mean it's badly maintained. And look at this, the roof, like all the shingles are wonky and peeling, and like, you know, all the wood is rotting and kind of starting to fall apart, and like there's kind of holes and everything's falling apart. Everything needs new coat of paint. Like the stones are, I guess they're okay. I guess they're cracking a little bit. So the bad in terms, like, this is a good kind of bad. I know I'm not explaining this very well, but this is like the sort of ugliness that somebody spent a lot of time to make sure that it looks this kind of ugly, if that makes sense. It's not bad design. It's really well designed in terms of conveying the essence of this city, which is everything is just old and run down, right? And they really made sure to make it look run down. So it's a good kind of bad, if that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. Alright, so now here we have the Palace of the Kings, and this is really imposing. Let me just walk back out. So the Palace of the Kings is like a castle within a castle. So there's walls, city walls, and you notice that the walls even divide each district into different parts. And so, you know, those walls enclose the rich district, and then these walls enclose the poor district, and then these walls enclose the palace district. And so even here, like, even the districts of the city are really strongly separated, which, you know, I guess there were also separations in Solitude and in Whiterun too. Like in Whiterun, it was arranged in tiers, and there were staircases to go from one place to the other. But, you know, the walls are much more psychologically intimidating. If they don't, I mean, they don't really block your movement much, but they block the view a lot. And so it's more like a psychological barrier than an actual physical barrier, because you can always just gonna go through the doors, right? So this is like a castle within a castle. There's walls here, and then there's a really big, imposing building. And if anything is close to being well maintained, it's the palace. That looks pretty clean on the most part. I mean, here the stonework and the roofs are also kind of rotting. Even this thing is kind of rotting. Is there any good way to see this? What I'm thinking is that there's a lot of detail up there, but we can't really see it up close. So it's like, I mean, the whole thing looks like it's kind of looming over you and kind of looking down at you, doesn't it? Like I mean, even the building itself steps back, so it's almost like the building itself is like leaning back and standing, towering up into the sky, and just kind of looking down at you. Do you kind of feel that? So very imposing, very impressive, and the doors are massive. Again, like, you remember the door to the Blue Palace back in Solitude? Like, it was a tiny little door like this big. Whereas this door, it's that big. It's huge. Should we go inside? Let's go inside.
Algrith won't give us a straight answer.
Oh no, they're gonna talk.
Magic's fine. Just don't go burning down any buildings.
Oh, I haven't done this quest yet. Oh, anyway, never mind. So this is the interior, and you can see how, like, all the stonework is kind of crumbling a little bit and peeling. Although the tapestries are not falling apart. But you can kind of see the wear and tear of the ages in the textures of the stonework, right? Although the carpet needs a bit of maintenance. Look at that, there's holes in it. These guys are talking politics.
So we're ready to start this war in earnest then.
Soon.
Alright, so the tapestries are fine. The seat looks kind of cold. Ah yes, we're gonna slouch there on the seat, awesome.
Whoever we replace them with will need the support of our armies.
We're ready when you are.
Things hinge on White Run.
Stone throne.
If
Look
we
at
can
that.
take the city without
That's a
bloodshed,
really fancy chair.
Stormcloaks
Check
are
it out.
fighting victory across the land.
People are behind you.
many I
Uh,
fear.
Let's
still
walk away
need
from those guys. Let them talk.
And let them die with their false kings.
So down here we have the
Been
kitchen.
soldiers a long time. We know the price of
There's a bedroll in the kitchen. The
But
chef
left
sleeps
away
here as
things
well.
in their
Amazing.
hearts.
What's left of Skyrim to wager?
They have families to think of.
How many of their sons
These guys
and daughters
give this
follow
speech
your
every
banner?
time you walk in here, by the way,
We
and it's kind of
are their
annoying, to be
families.
honest.
Well put.
Palace of King upstairs.
Tell me, Godmar.
So this is the war room. There's the map.
I'd follow
And there's a
you to
big
Think
guy
you
with
might
an
be in
axe.
the wrong place, friend.
No, I'm in the right place.
Yes, but why do you fight?
Look at these
Not for
narrow
me.
windows. So,
What
so
then?
fortresses usually have
I'll
narrow
die
windows because you don't
before
want big
elves
open windows for
dictate
people
the
to shoot
fates of
arrows
men.
through.
Are we not
So
one
for
in this?
defensive purposes, you keep your windows narrow, so it's easy to defend and people can't climb in the window to attack you, right? So, oh dude, shut up.
I fight for we few who did come home, only to find our country full of
Oh
strangers
my god, the guy's
wearing
yelling.
familiar faces. I fight for my people,
Shut up.
impoverished to pay the debts of an empire too weak to rule them, yet brands them criminals for wanting to rule themselves.
Okay, can you shut up?
I fight so that all the fighting I've already done hasn't been for
Like, I don't want to talk over.
I fight because I must.
Yeah,
Your
whatever, dude.
words give voice to what we
So
all
I mean, this is a
feel,
real fortress.
and that's
So
why
this
you,
palace
my king,
is a real fortress. If we compare this, for example, to the Blue Palace,
would be the
the
day
Blue
when
Palace is not a
soldiers
real
like us
fortress because there's
no
massive
longer
windows and it's not really well
I would
defended.
gladly retire from the
The
world.
walls aren't that thick.
We're such a day
It's
ago.
really like the Blue Palace really is a palace. It's more like
But
a
in the
luxurious
meantime, we
house,
have a war
right?
to plan.
Whereas this palace is also a fortress.
I want to send a message
So it's much more warlike and much more
and the message
martial in character.
Diverting Gar and Patrin's men to join him.
Let's go upstairs. And we'll look at the furniture of the Jarl. Like look at the stone. Look at the worn staircase too. So staircases, I don't know if you've been to like really old staircases. But when a staircase has been around for like hundreds of years or even thousands of years, the fact that people walk up and down the staircase every day wears out the stone. So you can see how like the stone kind of dips down in the middle. It's because people have walked up and down the staircase so much that they've worn away the stone in the middle. And so that indicates to you just how old this building is and just how old the staircase is. You see this kind of thing if you like go to old Roman cities or things like that. Just kind of the way even the stone is worn by the time and like in all the years that have passed. So all this wear and tear really shows you how old this is. And in comparison to Solitude, for example, everything in Solitude looks kind of new, right? And in comparison to Whiterun, the walls are kind of worn, but all the wooden buildings are kind of new. So this really feels old.
There are stories about you and dark. Huh?
Move. Thank you. And like narrow corridors, like narrow oppressive corridors, it doesn't really feel like a palace. It feels more like a barracks. Like you see, because military installations usually are efficient, and by efficient I mean they make the most of very little. And so the fact that these spaces are so low, and these feel like kind of tunnels, means that this thing feels more like it's a castle, and it's a castle prepared for war, more than a palace prepared for rich people to enjoy themselves. And again, like the very small windows to kind of separate you from the outside world.
You hear the news? There's a dragon roosting up on Mount Anthor, to the northwest.
And then back here we have more beds. I'm not sure who sleeps in these beds. I think the guards do. So the court mage is there. And the court mage doesn't even have windows in his room. So everything is closed off from the outside.
I do the cooking and cleaning around the palace.
I'm trying to find the Jarl's
I find
bedroom.
your hand
Maybe
in my pocket. I'm going
it's on
to
the
pick
other
it up.
side of the... I think it's on the other side of the building. Hold on. Let me go to the other side of the building. Look how low the ceilings are. Everything's just oppressive and foreboding. Right? Oh, this is the barracks. Never mind. So the barracks are here, and again the worn staircase.
I've a lot of respect for the restoration school. Skyrim could use more healers.
Interestingly, the barracks is more spacious than the servants' quarters. So you can kind of, by that, you can kind of understand the hierarchy of power, right? So, you know, the least spacious quarters are the servants. So the servants are at the bottom, and then next are the guards, and then I suppose the most spacious and most decorated part of the palace would be the Jarl's quarters. Let me try and find the Jarl's quarters if I can. Yeah, look at this. Look how spacious this is.
We got a
The
nickname
lady,
for anyone who
move.
trifles with us guards here in Windhelm. Suicide.
So the character of these buildings do say
Give
something.
us a straight answer.
Oh, they're
He's
giving
a
the
true
same
Nord.
speech again.
He'll come around.
Don't be so sure of that. We've
Okay,
intercepted
but-
couriers from Solitude. The Empire's putting a great deal of
They're
pressure.
doing the
on-
exact same speech again. I can't believe
What
it.
would you have?
So what's back here? Like the character of the buildings, the fact that it represents old power, but it's not well maintained. In a way, it speaks a little bit about the conservatism, right? They're holding on to old power, they're holding on to old ideas, and they're holding on to this old building too. And they're not actually
Wonder what it's like for those Thalmor.
they're not actually making anything new out of it, right? They're not actually repairing any of it. They just kind of it's almost like they enjoy the fact that it's slowly crumbling. And I guess the conservative mindset, or the fascist mindset, is the reveling in old power, or like stories of old power. And like like it's not really a comfortable place to live. Look at this. These are the double beds. I'm guessing these are where the rich people live.
Hands to yourself.
And is this the Jarl's quarters? Okay, this is the Jarl's quarters. The bed is not all that fancy, although he sleeps on top of a podium, which is kind of interesting. So there's the fancy chairs, slightly fancy tables, there's the fancy shelves, and there's a high ceiling here. And the Jarl, the Stormcloaks also keep talking about the old ways. Of course, they want to go back to what she can tell us, and they want to go back to the way things were. So there's the conservatism and the racism against the I guess the new arrivals, which is the Dark Elves,
Let them die with their false kings.
and that
We've been
attitude
soldiers a long
is
time.
embodied
We
in the
know
buildings,
price of freedom.
which is also really old. Like this is like the oldest city in the whole game, and all the stonework is like kind of old and crumbling and cracking. And the people here are okay with that. Like they're okay with old things, old ideas, old buildings. There you go. Old traditions, old gods. Let me see if we can get into some of these rich houses and see what they look like on the inside. And like these gates too, like everything, there's a kind of a vague military character to everything in this city as well. They're all locked. Let me see if I can get inside. Maybe let's try this one before I start lockpicking. Oh, this is my house. Should I go into my house? I guess I can. Oh, it's not my house yet. Never mind. I keep forgetting where I am in the main quest. I thought I've done this quest already. Apparently I haven't done the Civil War quest yet. I swear I have. Why? Anyway. So let's...
My father says we need to just get our lives. Like it's that easy.
Bye. Let me lockpick this. Oh, I have a key. Alright, so the inside, look at this, again, you can see the timber is old and rotting and really needs a coat of paint, right? And the floor, well, it's not quite as cracked as the stuff in Whiterun, but you know, it's old. The furniture is the rich stuff, though. Rich furniture, rich beds, look at that. Fancy carvings on the bed. Fancy shelves, but again, like the rough stone and the rough timber. Everything's rough. And the open fire, there's no chimney. Wow, oh, hey, there's no chimney. This is pretty bad for your health. And then upstairs, so there's the chimney, there's the fireplace with the chimney behind it. Quite spacious actually, if you think about it. Look at all this empty space in the middle here. And the architecture is good. Structurally very plausible. Steep roofs. Alright, good. So this is a house in Windhelm. I'm just trying to remember the houses in Solitude. There's more stone in Solitude, more carvings, more decorations. More decorations, I think, is the big key. Like here, everything is kind of austere and not very decorated and rough. Rough, old, austere. Whereas things are just a little more sumptuous and luxurious over in Solitude. We don't need to go to the... well, there's the market. We don't need to go through here again.
And grant peace to these departed.
Let me see what's in the blacksmith's place, if I can. Oh no, that's locked up. Let's go into the potion guys.
Got something for just about everybody in here. Give a holler if you
Same
have any questions.
textures, pretty much the same thing. Oh look, broken floorboards. So here we can see they're slightly poorer because they have broken floorboards. But aside from that, the walls are more or less the same, aren't they? Oh, this. Okay, broken floorboards and spider webs. So even less well maintained than the wealthy homes. And the bed is less intricate.
Good day, friend.
And the tables and chairs are rough as well. Broken floorboards, man. I mean, it's not only does it look bad in terms of like you don't want to live in a house like this, but it's also dangerous. Like you can kind of put your foot through it and then break your foot or something if you're not careful. So this is a shop, and these are merchants, so they're not poor because they have a business, right? Let's go over to Candlehearth Hall and see how well that's doing. So even though these are business people, they're not making, like, it's implied that they're not making enough money to be able to afford to repair their houses and to repair their floorboards. That's the implication, right? Candlehearth Hall is, oh, it's better maintained. So this is better maintained. It's the same furnishings and the same materials as the wealthy areas of Windhelm. Yep, same carpets. The furniture is slightly less fancy, but close enough. So you can see like a similar shape, but less carvings on the bed there. Yep. All right. So this is like medium wealth. So high wealth, and then there's medium wealth. Whereas interestingly, the potion guy was low wealth because his beds were lower quality than this. Alright, so there's that, and then there's upstairs. This is weird. Having a fireplace upstairs is kind of weird. And you notice there's nothing down here holding up. I don't think that makes any sense. Because like a fireplace and a chimney basically is a lot of stone.
We're laying over in Windhelm.
It's a big stone pillar which is really heavy and it's sitting on nothing. Like there's nothing underneath here to hold it up. So if this was on the ground floor, that would be plausible. But it's on the second floor, and it's literally sitting over nothing,
It's good to spend, huh?
which doesn't work structurally. That's kind of weird. Aside from that, so again, the small windows. I guess, you know, because it's so cold here, the small windows also means that you don't lose heat to the outside. Like if it's always cold and if it's always snowing, you don't really want big windows because then like the cold comes in and the heat goes out. That's not good. So this building is pretty good except for the chimney. The fireplace really should be on the ground floor, I think. Anyway. Let's go check out the Temple of Telos. And inspect. So the stone is worn and old. We already kind of understand that. Let's just see how this looks on the inside. Ah, curious. So the ceiling is not as high as the Temple of the Divines back in... Well, it is. Actually, no, it is. It is. It's just not as vertical. No, it's just as tall. I mean, if you count like up to there, it is just as tall. It's just that there's structural bits in between here, so it's not quite as impressive. And of course, all the stone is worn and old and falling apart a little bit. And there's Talos back there. And the priest lives behind here. Jorah, hi. Okay.
You know, Alice, he founded the Empire.
Interesting. It's almost like a less primitive, I mean a more primitive version, a less advanced version of the Temple of the Divines. Like it's less vertical and there's like the older carvings, and of course the stone itself is worn. It's less vertical, but the theme is the same, which is like a tall vertical space, just, you know, less vertical than the other one. Interesting. It almost looks like it's an older version, or like it's a more primitive version of the Temple of the Divines in Solitude. Which again fits the story about the conservatism of the people of Windhelm.
The townsfolk, because I used to be a sailor.
Okay, so then down here we have the Grey Quarter. Let's check out the furnishings in the Grey Quarter. If I can find a house to go into. What is... oh, got a key. So this is where the poor people live, and you can see like all the boards are falling apart and rotting, and there's spider webs. The tapestry's got holes in them, and the floor is, well, at least it's not broken, but like there's crap all over it. Let me see. All right, so this is it dripping? Is there like water dripping down? Yeah, there is. And the spider webs are moving, so it implies that it's drafty. So the walls aren't really keeping the wind out. And of course, the furniture is the lowest tier of quality. So this is the poor part of town. Although the rooms are still massive, which doesn't really make sense. Usually, in a poor part of a city, the houses will be overcrowded because people can't afford a big house, so they have to pack a lot of people into each house. And so, like poor parts of the city usually are overcrowded. So in that sense, it's slightly weird that there's only, you know, a few beds here. But again, you have the broken floorboards, you have even the broken walls. Even more broken than the other parts of the city, and the furnishings are, of course, less impressive as well. Okay, so this is like the poor part of town. I guess this is like as poor as can get. I mean, we don't have like mushrooms growing inside the houses yet. I can imagine even worse. Actually, no, when we go to Markarth, we can see even worse, I think. Alright, so this is the poor part of town, and it's evident in the architecture. Although not so much in the stone, like the stonework is more or less the same in the entire city. So it's not like the stone is wearing out any faster in this part of town. It's only like the stuff that's perishable, like the tapestries are rotting, and the floorboards are rotting, and things like that. The stonework is just fine. You know, the stonework is no different from anywhere else in the town. The new nicest corner club is the Dark Elf Tavern. Of course, they're segregated. They have their own tavern. And again, it's just the broken walls and the broken floors and the rotting tapestries and so on and so forth. And Imperial banner, so these people support the Empire, and Imperial armor as well. The Empire is at war against the Stormcloaks. So Ulfric is at war against the Imperials, although there's like Imperial armor inside this corner club, which, you know, indicates where these guys have their allegiance. Alright, everything is old and broken and poor. Great. I mean, you can see a lot of this stuff at a glance. Like, you don't really have to analyze the architecture. Like, it's so obvious that these people have less money than the people on the other side of the city, am I right? It doesn't really take a genius to point this stuff out. There's a shop here. Do we need to go into here, into this shop?
Got something for just about everybody in here. Give a holler if you have any questions.
I guess it's not... well, I'm just thinking... I mean, the funny thing is, the potion guy on the other side of the city is not doing much better than this guy on this side of the city. So, like, the merchants
All my goods are legitimate.
aren't really part of the wealthy people of this city. I mean, it does make sense, because if you think about it, like, these people are rebelling against the Empire, and the Empire brings in a lot of money in trade, and also, I guess, in subsidies. So Solitude is wealthy because of its close connection with the Empire, and it can trade with the Empire, so it can afford to get a lot of new stuff. Whereas these rebels, rebelling against the Empire, they're kind of cut off from the rest of the economy of Tamriel. So, like, they're poor. I mean, there's rich people and poor people in the city, but the city as a whole is less prosperous because they can't trade with the Empire, whereas Solitude can. Anyway, let's go back out here and check out the docks. I mean, the truth of it is that if you look at the city, you can say that these people are not doing very well. They're sitting on a lot of old infrastructure, like the entire city is old infrastructure, and that might last them a long time. Like, the walls might last them a long time. There's a lot of stonework here that's still in relatively good condition, but it's all slowly crumbling away. So they're just kind of sitting on old infrastructure, but they don't have anything new, right? Like, all the buildings look like they're rotting. Even the rich people can't afford to replace the rooftops on their houses. So they're not doing well. So here's the dock. Again, it's a little bit too small, but I mean, the river itself is too small, so you can't really fit too much more into it. 2 ships. Not that many goods on the ships.
The gods gave you 2 hands, and you used them both for your weapon. I can respect that.
Argonian assemblage. I want to go in there. I don't know if I'll get attacked. Clan Shatter Shield Office. One of these is important. East Empire Company. Oh, this is funny. There's still an East Empire Company here, even though they're at war with the Empire. So the East Empire Company is basically the trading office. So this is the East Empire Company trading office, and you can see that it's completely empty. And this guy is trying to rebuild the East Empire Company here, but there's nothing going on. The warehouse is completely empty because they're at war and there's no trade with the Empire. So there you go. That's not gonna work. And if we go to here, so the Shatter Shields are...
Best offense is a good defense,
no, shut up.
Am I right?
So Shatter Shields are allied with Ulfric's Stormcloak. But even
We're
here...
one of the same kind, you and I. I'm glad to have met you.
There's a Dark Elf working here, interesting. But like, even here, you see the warehouse is not exactly overflowing with goods. I mean, there's a few goods. They're doing a little bit of trade. but not all that much trade. I mean, compare this with the East Empire warehouse over in Solitude, where there's like a massive cave underneath the city, and the place is just kind of filled with goods. Like entire ships sail into the cave to load up on goods. So the trading operations in Windhelm, you can see just from the furnishings that it's nowhere near as robust and vibrant as over in Solitude, right? And let me just go into the Argonian assemblage. So the Argonians aren't even allowed.
Bit of privacy. Get out of here.
They're not even allowed inside the city.
Warning. Leave now.
Alright, they want to kick me out. Oh crap, I'm trespassing.
I wish the Nords, Argonians, and Dark Elves in Windhelm got along better.
Yeah, well, you just kicked me out of your assemblage. So the Argonians... Actually, did it just get out? Can I just go back in? The Argonians aren't allowed to go into the city. I mean, the Nords are so racist that you can't even go in there. So they live out here at the docks, and this is as much as the Argonians get. Oh, that is wrong. That is a glitch, or like a mistake. That polygon should be up there. Huh. Anyway, oops. So the Argonians, curiously, they're doing relatively well, which is interesting. I mean, the furniture is cheap, but look, the floorboards are not rotten. The stonework is not too bad. And there's a lot of goods in here. Look at that. There's like pots and buckets and food and boxes, presumably full of stuff, and books. So the Argonians, interestingly, are actually doing better than the Dark Elves, although we have to kind of understand that the Argonians have been here longer than the Dark Elves. And so I guess this is what they've managed to accumulate over time. But yeah, the Argonians are not allowed into the main city at all. Banned. And I suppose that's it. That's pretty much our tour of Windhelm. Oh, what's this? Warehouse. Alright, so this is another warehouse. There's some goods here, not a whole lot of goods. So what can we say in summary of Windhelm? I mean, the story is that there are Nords that like to stick to tradition, and they want to go back to the worship of Talos. And they're racist. They're conservative and they're racist. And you can see it in, for example, the layout of the city, where everything is segregated, right? The Nords live in one corner of the city, and then the Dark Elves live in another quarter of the city, and then the Argonians live outside the city. So everyone is segregated by race. And the city itself is old, and so the fact that they're traditional Nords, and the fact that the city is old, of course, kind of go hand in hand. But the city is old in a way that is not well maintained. In a way, this is like, you might say that like Solitude is one extreme, which is it's relatively new, well maintained, it's connected to the Empire, and it embraces the future. Whereas Windhelm is the other end, where it's an old city, even the stones are falling apart, and they stick to tradition. And they refuse to have anything new. Like, they even refuse to have a new rooftop. Like, they refuse to replace the shingles on their roofs because, like, the roofs look like that. That looks like it needs repairing, to be honest. I mean, look at the edges of it, kind of peeling off there. So they're so embracing of their tradition that they won't even fix their rooftops. That's Windhelm. And then I guess Whiterun is in the middle, and in terms of the story, it also is caught in the middle between the Civil War. So Whiterun, it has the old city walls, which are half crumbling, but then they also rebuild some timber guard towers on top of the stone walls. So Whiterun's kind of in between. And yeah, that's the story, and that's the architecture. The architecture is entirely consistent with the story. And there you go. There we go. That's the environmental storytelling. And of course, it's kind of dark and oppressive and cold. There's ice everywhere as well, and that also, you know, alludes to the unfriendly social interactions between the people who live here, right? Like everything's cold. The city is cold. The people are cold, and dark, and hard, and stony, and angry all the time. Yeah, Ulfric Stormcloak is angry all the time. Okay, well that's our little walk through Windhelm. I mean, I think it's worth looking closely at this stuff, although I won't do it on video, but in fact I have done it a little bit. Maybe you should look more closely than I have if you have the game. Like these little details, look at these detailing. Bethesda has done research and found this sort of detailing somewhere in the real world, and they've kind of recreated it really well in the game. Just the way, it's not just that the wood is rotten, but the way it's rotten and the way the shingles are peeling off. It's well researched and well made, and so it's very believable, and it really helps really sell the story of what's going on here. Oh, can I climb this? Let me just try and climb up here where I'm not supposed to. No, I can't climb this. Not that it changes anything. Oh, that's interesting too. Look at that. There's like timber structures, like shacks, built on top of the stone structures. So this is like a sign of overcrowding, right? When people have to build extra shacks on the rooftops of existing buildings just to house more people. Although, you know, in the game, this place is not really overcrowded because, again, the limitations of the game engine means that you can't have thousands of people living in each city. So, you know, there's only a few dozen people in the city. But again, a sign of overcrowding. So good detail. And it's clearly not designed, right? It's just kind of planks of wood piled together. Amazing. So well designed. Look at this. It's so well designed. Like it's so old and rotten in the most carefully designed way, right? It's like I would hate to live in this city, but it's deliberately designed in a way to make me feel that way. It's not bad design on Bethesda's part. No, they deliberately did this, and they did it really well. They did it just right. So good stuff. What is this? Oh, it's just a rock. Okay, well I guess I'll end this video here. And in the next video, we're going to Riften. So there's 5 major cities. There's White One, Solitude, Windhelm, Riften, and Markarth, and we're going to go to all 5 of them.
Best way for us to win the Nords' respect.
And then after that, we'll go to other parts of the game as well. Alright, so I'll see you in the next video. Look at all this crumbling stone. Amazing.